USS San Diego is approaching New York. Suddenly, a massive explosion.
Gun crews started to rake the vacant waters around the San Diego for what they thought was a submarine.
But they find nothing.
There was no U-boat anywhere in that area.
Perhaps it's an accident.
Coal will spontaneously combust. You don't even need to give it a spark or anything.
And a shipboard fire can be extremely catastrophic.
Or sabotage.
A ship makes an excellent target for a saboteur.
U-boat, accident, sabotage. What sank the cruiser USS San Diego? These are the beaches of Long Island in New York State. And right out there are the shipping lanes that lead to one of the busiest ports in the world, New York City. I'm John Chatterton.
And I'm Melanie Paul. On July 19, 1918, the armored cruiser, the USS San Diego, was on her way back into New York City to pick up another convoy.
The San Diego has been escorting convoys across the Atlantic for nearly a year, protecting them against German submarines. In all that time, she's never once been attacked. But on July 19, 1918, at 11:05 a.m., her luck runs out.
Explosion to port side! Explosion to port side!
There was a huge explosion, and within minutes, the San Diego was on the bottom.
Navy and Coast Guard ships quickly arrive, even a seaplane. All search for any sign of a German submarine, but none is found. No one is exactly sure what has sunk the San Diego. Possibly a torpedo or mine from a German submarine. Or was it an internal explosion caused by an accident or sabotage? The U.S. Navy concludes it was a mine. But some are not convinced.
And almost a century later, there are still new theories and questions evolving around what sank the San Diego.
We're going to dive the wreck of the USS San Diego and see what we can find out. Like any wreck, the San Diego is a time capsule. She takes us back to a moment in history when everything was in transition. Sail power giving way to steam, wood construction to steel. The San Diego straddles two centuries, the 19th and 20th, and speaks to us of a time when America was first becoming a world power. To understand how the design of the San Diego came to be, we want to learn about its roots. The armored cruiser is simply an updated version of a very old concept, the frigate or sloop of war. We're on board the USS Constellation in Baltimore, Maryland. And with us is the ship's curator, Kennedy Hickman. Ken, tell us about the Constellation.
Sure. Constellation is a 22-gun sloop of war, built down in Gosport, Virginia in 1854. It's the second ship to carry the name Constellation, the first being built here in Baltimore in 1797. It's the last all-sail warship built for the U.S. Navy, as well as the last Civil War ship still afloat.
The Constellation sails anti-slave patrols off Africa and fights Confederate raiders in the Civil War. Like the San Diego, she's a medium-sized ship, not the biggest in the fleet. Her primary assets are speed and 22 8-inch cannons.
We're down here on the ship's gun deck now. This is where the majority of Constellation's guns would have been. The primary gun down on this deck is one of these. This is a 8-inch chambered shell gun. This would fire about a 60-pound spherical shell. Up close, it's a very nasty weapon.
But there's a problem fitting guns on a sailing ship, keeping them out of the way of the rigging.
They had to be placed in ports along the broadside, which meant that to aim the ship's battery, you aimed the ship. The 22 8-inch cannons, they had to be placed in ports along the broadside, which meant that to aim the ship's battery, you aimed the ship. The 22 8-inch cannons, they had to be placed in ports along the broadside, which meant that to aim the ship's battery, you aimed the ship.
Using the wind to aim the ship is slow and awkward, and it's the way naval war has been fought for centuries.
The Constellation really is very much like what would have been used by Nelson at Trafalgar, or all the way back to Francis Drake in the Spanish Armada in 1588.
But in 1862, there's a revolution in warship design. The ironclad USS Monitor features metal construction, steam power, and a rotating gun turret. All elements which will be integral to the San Diego.
The advantage of this arrangement was that the turret could train around on a 360-degree arc. You notice there was no sail rig at all.
The breakthroughs that will lead to the armored cruiser are in place. Yet despite these technological advances, after the Civil War, America's Navy stagnates.
There was some question by the late 1870s of whether the U.S. Navy could stand up, not against the Europeans, but even against South Americans like Brazil. It was, by world standards, a very small Navy.
In the 1880s, Congress decides to change that.
In 1883, Congress authorized construction of the first steel-hulled warships for the United States Navy. These were the cruisers, Atlanta, Boston, and Chicago. This was the first step toward the creation of a modern Navy.
At the turn of the 20th century, the transformation of the Navy gains momentum.
Now it gets big. Now it helps that we have a new president, Theodore Roosevelt, who takes sea power very seriously. And out of that comes a large building program. San Diego is a product of that program.
We're on board the dive boat Loch Ness, and we're anchored above the wreck of the USS San Diego. With me is John Hulbert. Now, John's an old friend of mine, and he's one of the most knowledgeable, creative, and innovative wreck divers in the Northeast. You've got a tremendous amount of experience on the USS San Diego. What's your impression as to how the ship went to the bottom?
On the port side is a large explosion hole at the engine room, which we've always believed was the hole that sank her.
Was your general impression that it was an external explosion, like from a mine, or an internal explosion from something within the ship?
I could not tell. The fact that the structure's gone doesn't really tell us either. If anything caused...
Though Hulbert and I have been on this wreck before, we haven't seen it in 15 years. Well, you and I, for our first dive, we're going to go down. We're going to take a look at the areas that might give us some information as to the cause of the sinking. Of course, we're going to want to see how the wreck has changed over the last 15 years. And also, we're going to want to look for penetration points for our upcoming dives. So if we can get those three things done,
we'll have accomplished a lot.
Ready to go?
Like always.
Downstairs.
While Hulbert and I do our survey of the San Diego, Melanie will be preparing for her first wreck dive in the North Atlantic.
John, you go ahead and take the lead.
Approaching the wreck, the first thing a diver notices about the San Diego is that she's turtle, or upside down.
This is the highest point on the hull of the USS San Diego. You can see here, some of the steel structure is completely eroded away. There's numerous holes and access points around here that will allow us to penetrate inside the wreck. But what we're looking for is the hole that's centered to the bottom.
Tomorrow on History.
There's no courts, there's no law, there's no jail.
But there are the members of the Vigilance Committee, and if you cross them, they'll use their instruments of vengeance. Vigilante Tech on Wild West Tech. Tomorrow night at 8 on the History Channel.
The Lost Battle of the Civil War on Investigating History. Tonight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. So
this holiday season,
yourself
put out the good stuff. Planters.
Hi, I'm Donald Trump to talk to you about the remarkable convenience of the Visa check card.
Everyone knows the Visa check card's directly connected to the money in your checking account. Oops. But if your card's lost or stolen, did you know you're not liable for fraudulent purchases?
Got it.
And you'll get every single cent of that money back? Guess not. Visa, it's everywhere you want to be.
And I thought he was doing so well.
Nobody stands behind their cars like Mitsubishi, because every new Mitsubishi now comes with a 10-year powertrain warranty, 5-year bumper-to-bumper warranty, and 3 years free scheduled maintenance. Now you can get 0% APR for 60 months on one of the best backed cars in the world.
Is your hair color too matte, flat, dated, complicated? Get real with Nice and Easy. Get built-in highlights in just one step for color that's so refreshingly real, it could be your own, just way more magical. Gray, really gone. With Nice and Easy, you've got natural-looking color, you've got highlights, and you're out of there. So get real and get color wonderful. Real. Nice and Easy with real built-in highlights from Clairol.
Hello.
Yo.
Where are you?
I'm in London. Where are you?
We're in Paris. Thought you were in Tokyo.
Thought you were in Boston.
Change of plans. What's up?
Change of plans. We need to reroute the shipment.
New terms?
New terms, new specs, new schedules.
Show me.
There you go.
Change of plans. Okay, will do. See you in New York.
Change of plans. See you in L.A.
Au revoir.
Sayonara.
So what's up? The usual.
When change is part of the plan, that's on-demand business from IBM.
Mayor Bloomberg wants to cut city services by $900 million, even cutting police and fire by 3%.
Anybody that thinks we have extra money just isn't willing to face reality.
Why, then, is Michael Bloomberg proposing to spend $600 million tax dollars to build a football stadium?
Anybody that thinks we have extra money just isn't willing to face reality.
Let's face reality. Say no to a West Side stadium.
I'm a research scientist, so when I got arthritis, I did some research. I found odor-free capsaicin. Its doctor-recommended ingredient attacks arthritis pain fast. And unlike the leading pain rubs, the longer you use it, the greater the relief. Capsaicin raises your level of relief.
Cholesterol. My doctor said to watch it. So I ride my bike, eat the good stuff, and take garlic every day.
Garlic's clinically proven ingredient maintains healthy cholesterol naturally.
The doctor's happy. So am I.
Eat right, exercise, garlic.
The lost battle of the Civil War on Investigating History, tonight.
You're watching Deep Sea Detectives on the History Channel. We're here just 11 miles from New York City, diving the wreck of the armored cruiser USS San Diego. July 19, 1918. In good weather and calm seas, the San Diego suddenly explodes in broad daylight and sinks in only 20 minutes. We're trying to find out why. On this first dive, I'm surveying the exterior with my old friend, wreck diving legend John Hulbert. There's one of the 5-inch guns. A 6-inch gun.
And of course, this is where the lookouts would stand their watch.
The crow's nest must have broken loose as the San Diego turned upside down while sinking. Making our way forward along the starboard or high side, the deterioration is obvious. Time has not been kind to the San Diego.
Wow. Some change. A tremendous amount of deterioration. Whew. It was really amazing how much of the hull is disappearing. And you've got rust holes that are appearing in the middle of the place and then spreading out. When we go inside, you're gonna have to be careful. John.
When Hulbert gets back on deck, we compare notes.
So what'd you think? The changes are just so numerous. That's what surprises me. And they're capricious. They're where you don't expect them. You can go in so many places now. It's dangerous, really.
John, do you think there's any kind of evidence that can be collected from the outside of the wreck that'll give us any information whatsoever relative to the sinking?
No, I didn't, John. Especially where we were. Either it was too deteriorated or there just wasn't any damage. But I think on the other side of the wreck, where the engine room hole is, there's a fair chance we'll at least see where she blew, if that's indeed where she exploded.
Well, next time, you and me, that's where we're going, and then we'll head inside. I like it.
On our next dive, our objective will be to penetrate the port side engine room. It's there, according to the captain's report, that a severe explosion occurred. He assumed it was an external explosion, but crew reports were confusing, and no one could rule out an internal explosion either. Historically, we do know this much. It's only 40 years after the Civil War when the San Diego was created.
But by the time the architects are actually sitting down to design the USS San Diego, they're in the midst of a technological revolution. Wood and sail are being replaced by steel and steam. And that's just the beginning. We're here on the Delaware River in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this is the USS Olympia. Now, the Olympia is a cruiser just like the USS San Diego, but a little bit smaller.
The Olympia is the only surviving example of a cruiser from the same period as the San Diego. In fact, she was even built by the same shipyard, Union Iron Works in San Francisco. Getting familiar with the Olympia will help us get a sense of what the San Diego was like before she sank.
We're here with Jesse Lebovics. He's the historic ships manager at the Independent Seaport Museum.
So Jesse, tell me what's so unique about the Olympia?
She was the first genuinely successful steel warship the U.S. Navy ever produced.
She was in battle in the Spanish-American War, right?
She led the Asiatic Squadron in the first successful U.S. victory over a foreign power ever, in fact. And on May 1st, 1898, Admiral Dewey, at the time Commodore Dewey, was on board the Olympia, the flagship of the squadron, and sailed into Manila Bay.
Manila Bay in the Philippines, a Spanish possession. After months of rising tensions, on April 29, 1898, America declares war on Spain. 2 days later, in the pre-dawn darkness, Commodore George Dewey on the USS Olympia leads his fleet into the bay. The battle is decisive.
Within 8 hours, the entire Spanish fleet was sunk. The city of Manila surrendered, and that was the end of the Spanish in the Pacific at that time.
By defeating Spain, the U.S. gains possession of Puerto Rico, a naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, Hawaii, and the Philippines. Maintaining America's new position as a world power will be up to the growing U.S. Navy. And one of the Navy's new cruisers will be the San Diego. She joins the fleet in 1907, originally named the California. She's renamed San Diego in 1914. That summer, distant events are set in motion that will soon determine her fate. War breaks out between Austria and Serbia and quickly engulfs all of Europe. The First World War has begun. At first, America remains neutral.
The United States was determined to stay out of World War I. And America did just that for quite a while, at least when it came to the actual combat.
But not in terms of making money. There were plenty of Americans who were willing to make a quick buck by doing business with either side.
To prevent supplies from reaching Germany, the British Navy imposes a naval blockade.
The Germans have this problem that there are essential things they want to get that aren't getting through the British blockade. And there are things made in the United States that they want.
In 1915, Germany begins work on a revolutionary answer to the blockade, an underwater cargo ship.
It was kind of a Jules Verne-esque type of concept, a cargo-carrying submarine that was capable of coming to the United States or other neutral countries, picking up strategic war materials and bringing them back to the homeland.
In July 1916, the first of these giant U-cruisers, the Deutschland, arrives in Baltimore.
The following year, in 1917, when the U.S. officially entered the war, those same U-cruisers were on their way back to the East Coast with a new mission. This time, they had been equipped as warships.
If the USS San Diego was sunk by a torpedo, it was most likely fired by one of these big U-boat cruisers.
On our next dive, we're going to see if we can find evidence of a submarine attack on the USS San Diego.
Tomorrow on History, a neighborhood is built around a canal. Years earlier, the canal is used as a chemical dump site. Eventually, a brown ooze makes its way to the surface. A ghost town is inevitable. Engineering disasters on Modern Marvels, tomorrow night at 10 on the History Channel.
The Lost Battle of the Civil War on Investigating History, tonight.
I love when it's thin. Thin, 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 thin. Who delivered?
For crispy crust loaded with your favorite toppings, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. Thin.
For the first time ever, the beauty of film seamlessly integrated with the form of television. Introducing the Hitachi Ultravision Cineform Series Plasma and LCD high-definition televisions. For the smoothest cinematic picture in a sleek film-like frame. Original technologies, seamless integration. Only from Hitachi.
Sometimes seeing the need to protect yourself is obvious. But if you have diabetes, helping to protect your heart may not be obvious, even though you watch your diet. Diabetes puts you at high risk for heart attack and stroke, so talk to your doctor about ways to help protect your heart. The Heart Protection Study proves Zocor, along with diet, significantly reduced the risk of both heart attack and stroke in people with diabetes, including those with normal cholesterol and normal blood sugar. Zocor is not for everyone, including people with liver problems, women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Muscle pain or weakness could be a sign of a rare but serious side effect. Zocor may interact with other medicines or certain foods, increasing your risk of getting the serious side effect. Simple blood tests are needed to check for liver problems. If you have diabetes, ask your doctor if Zocor can help protect you, and go to Zocor.com to get your free book. It's your future. Be there.
We see children learning and visions becoming reality. We see a business expanding, going global, and another coming back. We see one patient, many experts, and developers discovering the next big thing. We see you doing more, becoming more. We see your potential. We're inspired to create software that helps you reach it.
Tomorrow on History.
There's no courts, there's no law, there's no jail.
But there are the members of the Vigilance Committee, and if you cross them, they'll use their instruments of vengeance. Vigilante Tech on Wild West Tech, tomorrow night at 8 on the History Channel.
The Lost Battle of the Civil War on Investigating History, tonight.
You're watching Deep Sea Detectives on the History Channel. We're about 11 miles off Long Island, New York, investigating the 1918 sinking of the armored cruiser USS San Diego due to an explosion. Was it a torpedo or mine from a German submarine? Or an internal explosion due to accident or sabotage? Our survey of the exterior didn't reveal much. Now it's time to get inside. Penetrating any wreck is extremely hazardous, and this one is no exception. Over the years, 6 divers have died on the San Diego.
What do all of the diving fatalities on the USS San Diego have in common? The divers either became lost or disoriented. It is incredibly easy to become disoriented inside a shipwreck, and I'm going to show you just how easy. Now, we're on one of the upper decks of the USS Olympia. We're going to make our way down to the engine room, which is about 6 decks below us. It'll be like navigating a 6-story building that's partly demolished on a limited air supply, full of cables that can entangle us, heavy equipment that can fall on us, and plenty of opportunities to get lost due to visibility. When we're inside, there's no ambient light, so it's going to be dark, even with a flashlight. Oh, and on the USS San Diego, well, the wreck's turtle, or upside down. That makes things really disorienting. Ready to go? Into a doorway, down one set of stairs, down a second set of stairs, left down a hallway, left through a doorway, into a different stairwell, down one set of stairs, turn, down another set of stairs, onto a catwalk, cross to the right of the engine, take a left turn, pass left of the engine. Well, here we are, the engine room. But believe me, getting in here was the easy part. Now we got to turn around and find our way out. Get the picture? That's exactly how divers become lost or disoriented inside a shipwreck. Which is just what we don't want to happen to us. We're now getting ready for our second dive. Our objective is to reach the port side engine room, reportedly the location of the explosion. We're going to use good progressive penetration techniques. We're going to have the advantage of underwater communications. And if we have any kind of system failure, you and I, we're out of there. Out of there. Cool. Let's go. While Hubbard and I penetrate the interior, Melanie will be making her first wreck dive in the North Atlantic, using equipment that's new for her, a dry suit. Wetsuits leak a small amount of water, which, heated by the diver's body, becomes an insulator. Dry suits are totally sealed. Thermal protection comes from what the diver wears underneath. Since women's bodies have more surface area relative to their mass, they lose more heat faster than men. And thermal loss can be dangerous. For Melanie's first cold water wreck dive, a dry suit is definitely a good idea.
I'm going to try out my new dry suit, and I'm lucky enough to be sitting here today with Susan Long, the president of DUI out of San Diego, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about this technology.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's very critical in all diving to be properly thermally protected, and especially women. And that can range, and the dry suit is perfect for that, because the dry suit's designed to keep you dry, then it's what you wear underneath that keeps you warm. So whether you're diving...
But there's a trick to using a dry suit. Since it's totally sealed, the diver must add compressed air into the suit while descending and bleed it off on the way back up to keep the pressure equalized.
So just like any other piece of equipment, it takes training and practice to really get comfortable with your gear in the water. So on this dive, my primary focus is going to be to get dialed in on my dry suit and really get the dynamics of the suit down.
Bottoms up! Woo!
As Susan and Melanie splash in, down at the wreck, I'm already inside. On the way in, I discover an ammunition storage compartment, a perfect example of one of the risks of penetration.
Inside this room right here is exactly what we're talking about. These are shells and the big gun. Highly explosive and highly dangerous.
As we penetrate further toward the engine room, suddenly, underwater cameraman DJ Roller has his light fail.
The video light is dead. Over. Roger that.
Without the camera light, DJ has no choice but to head back and shoot outside in the ambient light. I'll continue inside, but it's too dark there to shoot video. Back outside, Melanie's getting her first look at the San Diego. For her and Susan, at least, it's been a great dive.
It was beautiful. The life down there, drawing on the wreck is incredible. The structure is really immense.
Wow, that was great. I stayed dry.
You did?
I'm so dry under here. It's
And
great.
you're warm?
I'm very warm.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Very
for you.
warm.
All right, so when are you coming up here again?
What are you doing next week?
For me, this dive was a bust. But Hulbert seemed excited about something.
But John Hulbert seems to think he saw something, so as soon as he gets up, we'll see what he's got to say. How you doing, John?
Great, John.
So what did you see? Seemed to you like it was from the outside in?
Yes, but I'm confused. I would have expected it to have been bent more. The beams look straight.
At what we believe to be the point of the explosion, Hulbert has seen beams that show no sign of damage or deformation. That seems strange. And that's not all. The Navy report attributes an external explosion to a mine.
During World War I, the one type of mine available was the moored contact mine. This is the sort of thing you see in cartoons, the round sphere with little horns protruding from it. By breaking or bending one of those horns would complete an electric circuit that would fire an explosive charge.
But the San Diego's captain says she was moving at 15 knots, a pretty good speed. And the explosion occurred well past the middle of the ship, its widest point. If the San Diego hits a mine while making 15 knots, why wouldn't the explosion be near her bow?
Why could a mine have exploded that far aft? For an explosion to occur there on the side does not make sense to me.
You would expect it on the front end.
Front half, yes.
Not on the back half.
It just doesn't make sense. The Navy report also states that even though some of the San Diego's crew thought they saw a submarine periscope, there's no conclusive proof. It's time to take a closer look at some other possibilities. Accident, or even sabotage.
Tonight on History, it was one of the biggest cavalry battles of the Civil War, yet for the most part unknown, until now. Join our team of investigators as they work to uncover the facts and make the Battle of Mine Creek no longer the lost battle of the Civil War on Investigating History, tonight at 10 on the History Channel.
Introducing Mercury Montego, a dependable ride for the undependable forecast.
Ooh, look. Dear Prilosec OTC guys, 1 pill a day, 24 hours, 0 heartburn? How's that work? Signed, the frequent heartburn guy next to you.
Whoa, here's how. It's the only OTC that directly shuts down lots of those acid-producing pumps in your stomach. That's why it's the only OTC that can work for 24 hours with 1 pill a day.
Awesome!
Prilosec OTC, 1 pill a day, 24 hours, 0 heartburn.
One of the reasons we play so well on the road is because we have a team out.
And then what happened?
John Elway drove 98 yards.
She definitely cares about what we eat. Ooh, Miss McNabb, Miss McNabb.
Al, keep driving.
Oh, come on. For away games, she loves giving us Campbell's chunky soup in microwavable bowls. She makes the road feel like home.
Let me hear your battle cry.
Campbell's Chunky. It fills you up right.
Can you hear me now? Good. Now. Good, good. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Good.
We ask the same question over and over.
Can you hear me now?
So that you don't have to.
Good.
Verizon Wireless has fewer dropped calls than any other wireless network.
Good. Can you hear me now?
It's what makes us the most reliable wireless network in the nation.
Now. 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 Can you hear me now? Now. Can you hear me now? Good.
Verizon Wireless.
Can you hear me now?
We never stop working for you.
Good.
At CDW, we ship over 100,000 IT products to customers every day. So how can we do it even faster? One word, wormholes. I think it could really change things. It could take our shipping system to a whole new level. Now I just need to figure out the whole space-time continuum thing.
For the top brand IT products you need shipped out fast, count on CDW for the right technology right away.
Checking in, Mr. Nelson?
It's the 21st century. Trade like it with Ameritrade Apex.
Penthouse, access granted.
An advanced trading platform that offers the service and cutting-edge technology active traders deserve. On the new Ameritrade website, built for traders by traders, you'll get free tools like QuoteScope with free Level 2 quotes and free streaming news, plus exclusive Apex events and webcasts. If you qualify for Ameritrade Apex, you get 50 free internet equity trades and $50 in cash, all for only $10.99 per trade and no service fees. Innovative technology and service give you an edge. It's the 21st century. Trade like it. Call 888-303-9951 today or go to ameritrade.com/apex.
You're watching Deep Sea Detectives on the History Channel. We're investigating the 1918 sinking of the USS San Diego, a few miles off New York. The official Navy report concludes the San Diego hit a mine. If so, we'd expect the explosion to be near the bow. But the blast hole is aft of amidships. Now, Melanie and I have returned to the USS Olympia. We're with curator Jesse Lebovics down in the engineering spaces. Right now, we're deep inside the Olympia, and this is one of the coal bunkers, and where we're standing right here is about 17 feet below the water level.
This is actually called a stoking room. Right there are stoking holes where the coal fire would be burning, and right in here is one of about 25 coal bunkers. One of the unique features of this particular
As the U.S. Navy switches to coal-fired steam power, the advantages over sail are clear. But coal has a drawback.
Coal will spontaneously combust. You don't even need to give it a spark or anything. The compression, the gas would cause it to ignite. It would generally be somewhere in the middle of the pile. It wouldn't be on top. It wouldn't be accessible.
And it wouldn't be obvious. No smoke, no smell, no visible flame. The only symptom of a fire in a coal bunker is heat.
As a result of the fire, the space would heat up. That would be the only indication that something was going on.
The Navy requires every ship to check the temperature in every coal bunker daily. because spontaneous coal fires happen all the time.
It was an ongoing problem, and it was almost taken lightly because it was just almost to be expected.
February 15, 1898. The battleship Maine, anchored in the harbor at Havana, Cuba, explodes without warning. 266 of her crew are killed. Immediately, Americans look for someone to blame.
The Maine starts out as a suspicion that it's been destroyed by a mine in Havana Harbor.
Since Cuba is a Spanish possession, many Americans hold Spain responsible, and the Spanish-American War soon follows. But in 1975, Admiral Hyman Rickover, the father of the nuclear navy, reopens the case.
He commissioned a study, and they concluded that it was an internal explosion. It was a coal bunker explosion.
How could a smoldering fire in a coal bunker destroy the entire ship? The reason isn't the coal, but what's right next to it.
Yeah, about a quarter-inch away is gunpowder. On the Maine, when it exploded right at this point, just at the intersection between magazine and the coal bunker.
Jesse, this is what, 8 feet?
Today, the leading theory to explain the loss of the Maine is that heat from a smoldering coal fire set off a powder magazine, which suggests a possible scenario for our case.
Just like the Maine and the Olympia, the San Diego burned coal. So that certainly opens the door to the possibility that the San Diego sank as a result of a coal fire and internal explosion.
But that's not the only possible cause for an internal explosion. There's another possibility: sabotage. Throughout World War I, German secret agents were operating all over the U.S.
We're here in Battery Park near the southern tip of Manhattan in New York City, very close to where the Twin Towers once stood. Well, back in 1916, there was another terrorist attack here. The target, Black Tom Island, right next to the Statue of Liberty.
There were about 2 million or more pounds of explosives on Black Tom Island, huge quantities. And in late July 1916, the Germans sent a small team of people to Black Tom Island. These people were able to infiltrate the depot, place an incendiary device, leave the depot, and then at about 3 o'clock in the morning, it went off.
A tremendous explosion rocks the night. The shock wave radiates through the entire city, all the way up to...
Here in Times Square, 60 blocks away, tens of thousands of windows are blown out and glass litters the streets. It's utter chaos.
Windows were shattered all over Manhattan. The bang was heard as far away as Philadelphia. Subways were stopped in their tracks.
The fire raging on Black Tom Island kept ammunition exploding for 2 days.
Hundreds were injured. Damage, millions of dollars. And if you look at footage of the time of how Black Tom looked on the morning after the explosion, it does remind you eerily of the World Trade Center after the 9/11 attacks.
It soon becomes clear the explosion is the result of sabotage. Now, at the center of the Black Tom incident is a mysterious figure named Kurt Janke, a German secret agent working here in America.
Kurt Janke remains quite a mystery to historians, but the few things we can piece together, we know that he was born in 1890. In 1906, he decided to travel the United States.
When World War I begins, Janke goes to work as a German secret agent. According to him, one of his activities is sabotaging ships. In 1919, after the war, Janke is awarded the Iron Cross Second Class by the German government. Most intriguing is the last line of his award citation.
According to the information that we have, the sinking of the American cruiser San Diego was also the result of the work conducted by Janke.
Is it possible Kurt Janke sabotaged the San Diego? Or did he simply take credit for it to advance his career? Whatever the truth, this much is clear. What the Germans probably used to sabotage Black Tom Island was a device they called Infernal Machine, the cigar bomb. To learn more about what it is and how they used it, I went to meet an expert. I'm with Dr. Jimmy Oxley. She's a professor at the chemistry department at the University of Rhode Island. She's an expert in explosives. Jimmy, what is it that this device is supposed to achieve?
It's supposed to achieve a flame, and a flame is far more catastrophic on a shipboard than anywhere else. And it's a time device in a way, a very simple time device for the 19 teens. And a flame and a bunch of explosives, you have a large explosion like we had at Black Tom.
If a device like this was put into the coal bunker of a ship, what would be the result?
You would have a huge fire, and a shipboard fire can be extremely catastrophic.
Now, the cigar bomb really isn't a bomb at all, is it?
No, it's an incendiary device, and that's the point. Placed near combustible material, it's going to have a very hot flame that's going to start that material on fire. Come on in the lab and I'll show you.
The amount of chemicals in this demo is just a fraction of what an actual cigar bomb would contain. Even so, wow, it's easy to see how a device like that could bring a ship down. You put a cigar bomb into a supply of coal, it sets off a fire within the bunker. And what's the other side of the coal bunker? Munitions. Sabotage using a cigar bomb or spontaneous combustion in coal. Both scenarios could lead to an internal explosion. We've got to determine if the blast that struck the San Diego was internal or external. And we've only got one more dive to do it.
The lost battle of the Civil War on Investigating History, next.
Now on home video from the History Channel. Own your copy of this program delivered directly to you for just $24.95 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-708-1776 or shop historychannel.com.
Meanwhile, back from vacation.
E cos'è questo?
Marcello!
Salve. Che cos'è questo?
L'ha ordinato Angelina.
Angelina! Angelina! Che cos'è questo?
È il nuovo sistema di telefoni, papà. Fanno l'inventario, i fogli presenza, possono inviare immagini, messaggi.
Tutto qua dentro?
Tutto là dentro.
E tu che ridi?
No,
vai.
Doing business the new fashioned way. This is the power of the network. Now.
At BASF, we don't make the car, we make it more colorful. We don't make a lot of the products you buy, we make a lot of the products you buy better. BASF.
Have you discovered Alice White?
Welcome, mate.
Alice White, the inviting wine from down under. Delicious and distinct. Have a glass with Alice.
Where did you get that feather?
Our trip. We load up our new Nissan Pathfinder and head out. Try to make camp, get a better idea. Jump in the lake, jump out of a lake. We keep driving, watch 4 movies, come across this family and give them a ride. Well, soon we're around this fire and they give us this hog feather. We drive home without touching the freeway and get back just as we run out of CDs. Broccoli?
The new 7-passenger, 270-horsepower Nissan Pathfinder. Lease the new 7-passenger Nissan Pathfinder at a special introductory rate.
'Tis the season.
Whoa, which card are you using? Those rates are brutal.
I'll use our new Capital One Prime Lock card.
The new Prime Lock card from Capital One. It's set at Prime, so you never have to worry about your interest rate again.
What's in your wallet?
So what do they mean when they talk about the smart money? In my opinion, it's how you spend it. Right now, if you buy a 2005 Pontiac, you can lock in an incredibly low interest rate, even as low as 0%. And here's the best part. When you buy your next Pontiac, you will get that same great low rate. Even if interest rates go through the roof, you will be protected. If you ask me, that's the smart money.
Lock in and roll out any 2005 Pontiac, including the first ever G6. See your Pontiac dealer by November 30th.
My grandson said it would be easy to play poker online.
right. Now I can beat him and his college buddies every Thursday night.
Play poker with thousands of other players right now at partypoker.com. If you can check your email, you can have fun playing poker at partypoker.com. Partypoker.com. It's fun and real easy.
The lost battle of the Civil War on Investigating History, next.
You're watching Deep Sea Detectives on the History Channel. We're just off New York City, heading out for one final dive on the wreck of the World War I cruiser San Diego, sunk by a mysterious explosion in July 1918. If the explosion was internal, the cause might be spontaneous combustion, a known problem with coal. Or perhaps sabotage, such as the incident at Black Tom Island. If the explosion was external, the probable explanation is either a mine, as the U.S. Navy believed, or a torpedo. Either way, the source would be a giant Deutschland-class German U-cruiser.
It's government-made.
To reach any conclusion, we've got to pinpoint the precise location of the explosion. Our goal on this dive. John Hulbert and I are joined by Brad Shear, a fellow wreck diver and writer who's done extensive research on the San Diego.
Right, well, but they used it to
Brad has historical documents that have given us an additional clue, a U.S. Navy diver's report. Inspecting the wreck a day after the sinking, the diver puts the location of the blast hole at frame 78 and notes something else. A bend in the bilge keel. Brad Shear, John Hulbert, and myself have returned to the wreck of the USS San Diego. And on our first dive today, we want to get there to frame 78, right?
Yep.
Now, what was it about your last dive, John, that made you think this is worth a return trip to that area?
Well, on that dive, I noticed that the framework and the beams were surprisingly intact.
Based on the surprisingly straight beams at frame 78, we're now wondering if the location of the blast in the original report is wrong. Now, this is an area that, historically speaking, divers thought was this was the area where the explosion took place.
That's correct.
Jerry, okay. Has everyone missed the true location of the explosion? Or is frame 78 correct, as the Navy diver guessed in 1918? One feature that remains intact and prominent is the docking keel. That's our starting point. Once we find the end, we drop off the edge, and we're at frame 86. Swim 24 feet forward, 8 frames, and we should be where the Navy placed the explosion. Measuring our way forward, there it is. The bend in the bilge keel. It's deformed upwards into an obvious V, a strong sign of external explosion. This must be the place, but we're only at frame 80.
No hole near frame 78. So much for the naval investigation. Remember the Navy diver talking about the bilge keel being bent? You can see it rippled right at the forward end of the explosion hole.
Definitely. You can see where the hull is breached there. You can see that the hull plates are pushed in from an explosion external to the hull. And you can see the bilge keel. It's pushed way up. It's like comes like this and then bows up like that.
It has to be an external explosion.
Right.
See the way the hull plane is bent in underneath it? We knew where the explosion was and that it was external. Frame 80, about 8 feet after where we thought it might be. Successful detective work.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was. That really was. I'm real happy about it.
So, external explosion, not at frame 78, but at frame 80. That rules out both accident and sabotage, meaning we're looking at a mine or torpedo. But which is it? After this dive, Brad Sheard goes back to historical records and finds an intriguing parallel case. On August 15, 1918, the tanker SS Merlot explodes and sinks. Her captain thinks he was hit by a torpedo, but the U.S. Navy declares the Merlot, like the San Diego, struck a mine.
Conclude that they found mines in the area the next day. There was a known minefield there, and despite the fact that the captain swears he was torpedoed, the U.S. Navy concludes that the Merlot was sent to the bottom by a mine.
It's not until the 1940s that World War I German U-boat records become available. They reveal that a U-cruiser, the U-117, is laying mines when she spots the Merlot. U-117 stops releasing mines and fires a torpedo. But finding the mines in the area, the Navy assumes that is what sank the Merlot.
When we look at what happened, according to the captain of the Merlot, the detonation took place 12 to 14 feet below the waterline, aft of a midship. Boy, doesn't that sound just like the San Diego?
This is such an amazing parallel.
Yeah, I mean, you change the name from Merlot to San Diego, and what have you got?
Well, you know, we don't have...
After the San Diego sinks, the Navy discovers mines nearby. So they assume a mine caused the sinking. But is it possible a U-boat sees the San Diego coming, stops laying mines, and fires a torpedo just like the Merlot case? To John Hulbert, the blast damage on the San Diego supports this theory.
That it was aft, which is unusual, that it was deep in the ship. Right. I mean, it's not conclusive evidence, but it all favors a torpedo.
And on August 29, 1918, the New York Times reports the capture of a fishing trawler in the Gulf of Maine by a U-boat. Before releasing her crew and lifeboats, a U-boat officer tells the fisherman he sank the San Diego with a torpedo. Post-war analysis indicates only one German U-cruiser was in the area that day, U-156. But attorney and naval historian Paul Lawton doesn't believe she could have torpedoed the San Diego because of another attack she is known to have made 2 days later.
Around 10:30 a.m. Sunday, July 21st, 1918, the U-156 surfaced approximately 3 miles east of Nauset Beach on Cape Cod and shelled a tugboat, the Perth Amboy, and sank 4 towed schooner barges. So we know where she was 2 days later. The U-156 had a relatively limited surface speed. Based on that, it would have been extremely difficult for her to have covered that distance and have been on the backside of Nauset Beach 2 days later.
U-156 did not survive the war. In the end, we may never know whether it was indeed a mine, as the U.S. Navy concluded in 1918, or a torpedo, as the physical evidence may suggest.
After examining all of the physical evidence relating to the sinking of the USS San Diego, we found nothing to support either an internal explosion, sabotage, or even an accident. But personally, I'm still a little uncomfortable with the mine theory and the supposed detonation side of the mine aft of a midship.
And there are so many missing answers regarding German spy Kurt Janke's involvement with the sinking of the San Diego. Answers that he may have taken to the grave.
Today, the official record of the USS San Diego remains sunk by a mine, the only U.S. Navy capital ship lost in World War I.
Despite the speed of her sinking, only 6 souls perished in the accident. 1,200 of her crew were rescued.
Although nobody knew it at the time, it would only be 20 years until a new generation of German submarines crossed the Atlantic to continue the battle, this time in World War II.